Well, in our family, it's not Mar Cheshvan because Sarit was born on Tet Cheshvan, and so, we do have simchas, but... welcome, everyone, to this year's first meeting of the world's longest-running book club. Once again, the Committee on High chose the same 5-book series to read yet again for the 3,340th time or something like that. This Parsha Bereshit has a special place in my heart because it is Reuben's bar mitzvah Parsha. As most of you know, and as Rabbi Mark said earlier, my family and I came back to Boulder this summer after our 1-year trip to Israel turned into a 5-year trip to Israel. And our oldest stayed there, and we miss him a lot. But the rest of us are settling into life, albeit with divided hearts. A couple of years ago, we were fortunate to have Reuben's Aliyah Torah. That's, by the way, what they call it in Israel as a bar mitzvah, because bar mitzvah for most people is having a big party. In the ancient synagogue in the ancient city of Tzipori, which is one of my favorite places in all of Israel. If anybody has gone to all the big sites and has missed Tzipori, please don't the next time you have a chance. Tzipori is where Rabbi Yehuda Nasi finished editing the Mishnah and later passed away, and quite possibly the very place where the whole concept of a bar mitzvah was codified into Jewish law. Maybe. It was a beautiful Thursday morning. Reuben stood at a small podium separated from rows of friends and family by a 5th century mosaic with all kinds of beautiful pictures depicted on it, and he read from the first chapter, the first creation story. God makes stuff, he sees it, it's good, it's simple, perfect. Of course, God's perfect. He's all-powerful, all-knowing, blah, blah. But that's not the end of the story. It's just the beginning. God can just make a perfect creation, but there's a second creation story. Why? Why not just leave perfect alone? If it ain't broke, don't fix it, they say. Around that time, I was going through a drawn-out kind of, around the time of Reuben's bar mitzvah, I was going through kind of a drawn-out mashber kiyumi, a sort of existential crisis. And I spoke with lots of people to gain perspective on various things in life. And one extremely insightful person reminded me of a famous children's book from the 50s that I had read many times to my kids, not in the 50s. It's called Harold and the Purple Crayon by Crockett Johnson. Aron v'Haiparon HaSagol in Hebrew. Incidentally, it's rumored that Rabbi Jonathan Sachs gave this book only 4 stars on Goodreads, complaining about the author's vulgarity and consistently spelling color without the U. In the book, Harold, or Aaron, as it says in Hebrew, he's a little kid who's supposed to be going to bed, and he really wants to take a walk in the moonlight. But unfortunately, there's no moon, and there's no path in his bedroom for a walk. So he uses his little purple crayon to draw a path and draw the moon, and he draws out, quote, a long straight path so he wouldn't get lost. He sets out on the path, carrying the crayon with him, as the moon follows him in the sky, and he quickly gets bored and leaves the path to take a shortcut to nowhere in particular. And in one place, he decides there should be an apple tree, so he draws one. And to protect the apples he created until they're ready to eat, he draws a, quote, terribly terrifying dragon under the tree. And he gets so scared of the dragon that his shaking hand accidentally draws water, and he falls in. But don't worry, because he draws a boat, and he's saved. And the story continues like this until Harold becomes completely lost in a world of his own making. And in the end, spoiler alert, he remembers that the moon was following him all the time, and he still has his crayon. So all he has to do is frame the moon with his bedroom window, and he's back in the safety of his bedroom where it all began. To me, chapter 1's God is a lot like Harold. He creates by actualization. Let there be a moon, there's a moon. Let there be a long straight path, and there's a long straight path. He saw it was good, chaos to order, time for bed. But it's kind of boring, right? It's the creation of a terrarium. It's a children's book. It's just God picking out furniture. There's no one to answer to. Perfection is nice, I guess, but creation is just a silent partner in that story. Nothing but purple as far as the eye can see. In Halachic Man, Rabbi Soloveitchik, who's one of the great rabbis of the 20th century, argues that the creation narrative, Rashi and Rambam say that it's really about sort of the secrets of the cosmic world, but Rabbi Soloveitchik says that it's not about revealing cosmogenic secrets and metaphysical mysteries, but rather in order to teach practical halakha, basic, everlasting halachic principles. What I think he means by this is that the creation narrative reveals our fundamental purpose. God created everything. He's fundamentally a creator. God had a vision, which is actualized into reality. And we're created in his image, as we read. And so, thus, we are fundamentally creators. That is what we are created to be, is also creators. And the creation story is then a basic fundamental tenet of halakha. To be godly, to attain our divine purpose in everything we do, we have to follow God's example and be creators. And indeed, God created us with free will and creativity to use it, for better or for worse. And this is where the chapter 2 creation story comes in. This is where it truly gets interesting. God populates his creation with creators. He gives us space and purpose and companionship. And most notably, he gives up creative control. He hands over the purple crayon, and order quickly returns to chaos. Our first creative act gets us kicked out of Eden. Our second ends with sibling murder. Our third, which we read next week, actually seems to work out okay, but only for that one suck-up Noah and his immediate family who actually read and followed the instruction manual. But somehow, in the near destruction of the world, when all seems lost and we're completely adrift, everything's suddenly coming up rainbows. God promises an eternal partnership of co-creation despite our humanity. As an introvert and a perfectionist, community and co-creation are difficult for me. Often I feel lost, scared, alone, even in a world largely of my own creation. It's easy in those times to tell myself stories. If only I had the purple crayon, I could. But that's not reality. I don't have control. And in truth, I don't want it. In the times when I'm lost, I don't need more paper or sharper crayon. Those are the times when I most need to reach out and trust in my co-creators. Bereshit is often presented as telling two alternate stories of creation, but I don't think that's the way to look at it. I think in chapter 1, God creates his own universe in 6 days, but the creation story doesn't start over in chapter 2. Instead, chapter 2 begins, I'll paraphrase, on the 7th day, God rested from his work. Now, on the 8th day, after a full day of rest, in God's infinite Gmail folder, the heavenly inbox was quickly filling up. There was work to do, so God created delegating. And he saw it, and it was, well, we're still waiting to find out how it is. This, I believe, is the continuation of Soloveitchik's view of godliness, of creativity as godliness. We are godlike. We do have some measure of control, some power to actualize our own existence. But our world can only reach its bright, ultra-high depth, ultra-high color depth, multi-dimensional potential when we trust ourselves to let go of the purple crayon and see what others can bring into our lives. When we find it in our hearts to share creative control. When we have the fortunate privilege, as I do, of being surrounded by others who care about us and love us and trust in us and rely on us. Reuben's bar mitzvah in Sipori was, by all accounts, a perfect day. But it was actually better than perfect. It was a wonderful confluence of planning and coincidence, expected and unexpected, letting go and reining in, individual commitment and communal support, chaos and order, life, humanity. May we all love ourselves enough to know God, our godly power, and to use it to its fullest potential, so that each of us can create our world surrounded by a loving and supportive community of co-creators. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Oh, I won't dislike.